How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Happy to bring another interview to everybody. I really enjoyed this one. This is we talked to Mike and Cece with GVG Events, and they were great.
Yeah, this is a really great conversation. I like how they dive deep into the community side of vending and actually holding the event. And they had some really great ideas on and tips and tricks, I guess, on the topic of community and the experience for vendors.
Yeah, I think they really nail it in part because this is another event organizer or a pair of event organizers who come from that like vending side of things. They were exhibitors before, and I just love that they get it. I don't know. It's just awesome. So I'm excited to share this interview. They were so good to hang out with us as long as they did and chat about everything that they've made happen in the Atlanta area.
Absolutely, absolutely. And really exciting things to come. So let's jump right in and get started with our interview with GVG Events and Mike and Cece.
Awesome, awesome. So it's good to have you guys with us, Mike and Cece. So introduce yourselves and what you do and why you're here. We'd love to hear everything you've got to bring to vendors and artists.
Well, I'm ZZ and this is Mike. About 10 years ago, we started a company called GVG Events. We focus on doing vintage and handmade pop-up style markets in parking lots or spaces that either are looking for more foot traffic, or we can bring our vendors and our customer base into those spaces. Um,
Looking for, we pop up at a lot of places that are neighborhoods that are newly redeveloped or have things like bars, restaurants, music venues that may have good foot traffic, say on the weekends, but are looking to bring in something more of the weekdays, or tell people that, hey, you may have known what was here 10 years ago, but let us show you what we have now.
How we started too was we actually started as vendors ourselves. We needed a place to sell vintage goods that we had found either at thrift stores or flea markets. We started in needing a space ourselves. We quickly realized that there were friends that we had that needed spaces as well, that maybe couldn't afford larger stores, maybe couldn't afford the vendors booth fees plus a commission on top of that. So when we started the event, we started ourselves. We were just setting up in parking lots, and then quickly our friends just reached out and said, I would really like to join you guys. We realized, okay, we need to do something with that. We did that. We did that for a solid year, and then after that first year, we decided to start a multi-vendor type of event.
Very nice. What did you've been selling as well as getting other sellers together to move things forward. What have you learned? I mean, you've been doing this for a while now. What do you wish you'd known when you first started, even just as sellers, that like now you're like, oh, this seems obvious to me now, but newbies might need to know about?
So there's a lot that we've learned trial and error. About 10 years ago when we started, social media is nowhere near what it is today. Branding yourself and your business, getting the word out, and treating it as a community effort. We do a lot of, paid and free advertising on Instagram, Facebook, but when you're running markets with, some 50, sometimes 75 or more vendors, that community effort of just saying, hey, I'm going to be out here this weekend, come see me. If you bring your friends and they tell their friends, they're coming to see you, but they're going to stumble upon 70 other vendors that are out there beside you. And if everyone pitches in together, then we get all that overflow traffic and everyone benefits from it. So it's been great to see that kind of blossom over the years. That and things more like logistics and operational things like having tent weights. It's an absolute necessity. I don't know how we went so many years without putting weights on our tent feet. We stress it more than anything else because we've seen tents fly up in the air from wind, and it is the scariest thing for us.
Oh my gosh, it's so scary.
Yeah, I think too, what is kind of crazy is to go off of what Michael was saying is when we started, there just weren't as many pop-up markets or these style of markets. Of course there were art shows and there were maybe neighborhood events. So to see this community and the community that we're a part of grow over the last 10 years has really been incredible. And so I think to go back to the original question of like what did we know, like I guess to realize what we were going to be a part of. And at the same time, it's been great to not realize that and to slowly organically grow over the years. And as we tell people all the time, we will be at an event and a friend will come up and be like, y'all look like you're in, a very serious business. And it's a business conversation. And said, no, we're actually just learning. Because every single time we look over that event, we look and see what we do better. What do we like? What do we not like? So I think to have organically grown this over the last 10 years has been great, and exhausting, as well.
It's the learning curve has been trial and error. Cece and I do not come from events background. I spent my entire adult life in construction related industries, and Cece's been a hairdresser for 19 years. This was a side gig that grew out of organically out of the demand. There weren't spaces. We're in Atlanta. This is year 10 that we've been doing this, 9 of multi-vendor events. And it was just a necessity. We saw the demand, we filled the void.
I love that. That's incredible. So, what are some of the things that a quote unquote vintage seller would need to be aware of whenever they're selling that may be different from other events when they're at your events or these types of events? Like, what are some things that they need to keep in mind?
The line of vintage moves all the time. When we started, to think that 90s was vintage was a little insulting because it wasn't. It hit too close to home and made us feel old. So there were a lot of kids. We say kids. They were college age coming out to our events with duffel bags and walking through the vendor aisles with duffel bags, buying, selling, trading, and we kind of joked about it at first to see them out here like hustling out of a bag, and now
there's legit trading pits in some of these larger convention like events that are in convention centers. You have legit trading pits, and when they were coming into our events, we were like, what are these guys doing? What are they up to over here with these duffel bags? To see that evolution and to see that that's actually a legit thing now, to see that when we were there, I always use it as a reference. A Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt was, over $200. And I'm sure now that's even more, to see that it was wild, I think, for us.
That's not where, when we sold vintage clothing, was not on our radar as much. We did mostly furniture, housewares, things like that. And it's great to see it because our most successful category across the board is vintage clothing now. I'd say at least 30% of all the vendors that we book are vintage clothing. And people do ask that a lot. Why do you have so many clothing vendors? Well, clothing is something that everyone needs. Whether male, female, young, old, anywhere in the middle, everyone wears clothing, and time after time, they're the ones that are hitting the numbers and doing the most sales. So it's obviously in demand.
Wow, I never would have thought about that. Like the trading idea.
Oh yeah. They'll trade. Sometimes you'll trade, 2 and 3 pieces for a larger piece, or as they call it, a grail. and a grail would be a piece that is just either very in high demand, or it can be
Rare.
literally, yeah, it could be rare. It could also be on the construction of how it was actually made.
Interesting.
And that's really, honestly, that's not that part of it. The clothing, I never personally got into it, so I'm more so regurgitate information that we've learned over the time over that, because again, as that started, that was something that we didn't expect to really catch on. So yeah, I think to really, for those vintage clothing vendors, is like keep up with what's trending, keep up with what's going on, because it is changing at all times. And we're getting to that point that we could start seeing it going back to even the 80s and then the early 2000s at this point as well.
Yep.
That could be that next kind of step or that next kind of trend that's going to be coming in.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That just blows my mind. Anyway, but it makes a lot of sense. And I guess I never would have thought to ask, but I guess it would be important if you are going to sell at one of these, whether you're doing like handcrafts or vintage or anything like that, to know the audience age group probably then, because obviously if your age group's like in their 40s and 50s, one thing is nostalgia to them and another thing is really cringy. And if their audience is like 25, it's a very different time frame, I guess.
That's something that for each one of our events, we feel like we've done well on the event organizer side. Is all of our markets are curated, and so we go through, when we get applications in there, we go through just what you're talking about, Will, is go through these applications and say, where are we at in this part of town? What is that customer base that could be coming to this event in that area? And then we'll go in there. And so for some of ours that are closer to college towns, we may book more vintage clothing vendors. For the ones that are maybe closer to families, maybe into those 30s or 40s age range, maybe into the tech or something like that, then we might do more art, artisan goods, handmade items. We will still have vintage clothing because we're going to have all age ranges coming out. And we're very fortunate that we truly do have all our age ranges. But like you said, when we're going into that, we definitely keep that in mind of what we feel is going to be that demographic, what that customer base is going to be. Because if we do book, let's say we book, 30 vintage clothing vendors, and you're in a part of town that those artisans and those handmade goods are going to be better, you're going to have some upset vintage clothing vendors. So we feel like that's part of our job, is to curate that. And sometimes we have to say that of like, hey, we just don't know if you're going to do great in this part of town.
That makes sense. And to put it kind of another way, if you apply to an event and you don't get accepted, sometimes that's for the best. Then it probably seems that like, yeah, you don't need to spend your money here. You don't need to be here. This isn't for you today.
Yeah, sometimes it's our responsibility to protect you, even if if you don't know. We do get some emails from vendors and say, hey, I've applied multiple times, I still haven't gotten in. And we love that. We want to be transparent. We want to let you know either, hey, this event's not for you because we know that you're selling, high-end items with a price point over $100, and we're just off a college campus. It's going to be hard for you to make that vendor fee and then make a profit on top of it. So we would reply with the suggestion, you would do better at, this other market that we do, or even another market in the city that we don't run, and then we know would be a better fit. We are very strict on it being vintage, handmade, local art. We don't do any wholesale. We don't do any MLM. We don't do any of that stuff. So people send in applications without reading through completely, and then may send that email, hey, I've applied 3 times. I always get denied. Why? And we love to just say, hey, we support you as a small business owner, and we see your hustle. You're just not necessarily the right fit for this event, but here are some suggestions.
Oh, that's really nice. That's really cool, because a lot of event organizers, they don't care. They just keep pushing along.
Right.
Sorry, no. So that's really nice.
we were vendors first, and we've been through that process on the other side.
Mhm.
And something that we've prided ourselves on is building a community. We want to have an open dialogue. We want you to know that you paying this vendor fee is not us taking the money and running. It is us reinvesting into that event and into this community to continue to build something that benefits all of us.
And that community can't go as far as those other events. I mean, we always talk about it. If there's another event going on in that same weekend, we want to reach out. That's not competition to us. That's an opportunity for us to help promote each other and to help promote those vendors, because that's why we are here. I mean, that's what our business is, as we call it, support tiny businesses. We call them tiny business. So that's a tagline that we use all the time. And so when there's another event, it's not uncommon for us to reach out to them, whether that be email or a DM on social media, and just say, hey, we see that we're having an event on the same day. Let's cross promote. Let's continue to push this community. Let's continue to help each other out and help these vendors, because it's not going to be a shocker that there's going to be some vendors that are at their event that we've worked with, and the same thing with our events, that they've probably worked with that organizer as well. So that goes even farther on that community of like, we're all in this together. Let's not make this a competition. There is no bashing. Let's support, and let's push these vendors. Support tiny businesses is what we push a lot.
Yeah, I love that. So on the heels of that, then, when you're having the events and you do have all these specific vendors that are in the niche that you want them in, how does one stand out? Like, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you would suggest for them? Like, what do you think that they should be doing? What do you think they shouldn't be doing? Because I feel as if, and I could be completely off base because I have never, I'm sorry to admit this, I'm so sorry, but I've never been to a vintage event.
Right.
But I think that I feel like at some point it's going to be like kind of like everybody kind of has the same thing. So how do they, and maybe they don't, but how do they stand out? What's your ideas on that?
My first thought is that, customer engagement, we talk about this a good amount, is really truly engaging in those customers when they do walk by your booth, really, giving them a small little quick story about yourselves, or getting up and actually talking to them. I feel like what we can see is maybe some people sitting behind their table, or just kind of like hanging out and thinking that those sales are just going to happen. And there's sometimes that those do happen, but I feel like a lot of the times is to engage in those customers, and not just, hey, if you have any questions, let me know. That's like the most common thing that you're going to say. Thank you for walking in. Let me know if you have any questions. I feel like saying something and actually giving them a part of your story, no matter what you're selling, if you give them a little bit of the part of your story, I feel like customers and people in general, and I'm guilty of this, is I will buy into a story, and I love a good story. And if I get to hear your background and where you came from, how you started, how you're passionate about what you're selling, I'm going to spend more money. I think the other thing would be, for sure, when you're saying stand out, doing a test run, of your booth, make sure that it does look good. And then that if you would want to walk into it,
making your booth inviting to the general public. If it's just a tent with a table and a lot of dead space, that says a lot more than having something that's you want people to enter. You don't want to put your table at the very front of the booth. If it's a hot day, bring them in. Let them be in the shade for a minute. Come in, talk, giveaways. If you want to get your name out, stickers, buttons, koozies, anything that may cost you, 25, 50 cents a piece to get your name out, to spread that word, to get a follow, however you want to do it. We encourage activations. We've seen people bring out mini basketball hoops and say, shoot a basket for 10% off your whole purchase, or have a spinning wheel and have different percentages off, buy one, get one free, anything like that, because I know the way I am, you walk around a fair and those carnival barkers are saying, come on in. I bet you can't hit this. I'm like, okay. If I'm the
Yeah.
same way at a festival, they're like, spin this wheel and I'm going to give you something free. I'm in. I'm going to do it. I don't need that thing, but free is free.
It's free.
Yeah.
Right. Free's also kind of fun. So
Right.
And it's great. It's great advertisement for your brand. And no matter what you are doing, we love to give out stickers, and I love to walk around with we both walk around with koozies in our back pocket. And if someone is walking around with a drink or something like that, just walking up and being, hey, here's this. Make sure you're keeping that drink cold. You know what I mean? Like, here's that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would be shocked of the look on someone's face. It's almost like you just handed them a $20 bill.
Yeah.
And that's something that stands out to them, and they're going to continue to use that. I feel like, with koozies, it's like when you get a new koozie, you put that koozie in your like front of line rotation, and you use that koozie for a while. And then as soon as that can get a conversation started and you have a good design on that koozie, other friends are going to be like, where'd you get that? What is that? And then you're starting that conversation, then you're advertising, and then you're marketing. That's marketing right there.
Yeah. And if it's something like that it's usable in your everyday life, a koozie, a sticker, a keychain, a bottle opener, whatever. Every time you see it, you're going to remember the time. Hey, we went to that thing and it was pretty cool. When are they doing that again? How can I find them? How can I keep up with it? What are they giving away the next time?
That makes total sense. Actually, I just had, funnily enough, I had a yard sale this weekend, and you know what? I had like 30 of that I had to sell because I never got rid of them. Koozies.
Yeah.
So many of
okay.
them, but I still am like, oh yeah, that thing. Oh yeah, that thing.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
different things, and it links that memory to it, which is really great.
Yep.
And another thing I'll say of like bringing people in with free stuff, a crowd draws a crowd. Like if someone's already in the booth, then it's more inviting to anyone else to step in. It doesn't feel strange or intimidating to be like, oh, just me has to talk to just this person. It's like, oh, okay, this is a space for more than just me to be talked at. So yeah, it seems completely invaluable to just have people try to get that traffic in and have those conversations.
Right. And once you get people to enter your booth too, I'm not an introvert or an extrovert. I'm somewhere in the middle. But if I walk into a booth and I see someone reading a book or playing on their phone, I'm a lot less invested in what you're doing because you're not giving me that energy.
Right.
If you're out there trying to promote your business and make a living, I want a two-way street. I want to come in. I want to talk. If I don't want to talk, I'll say, I'll let you know. But I think getting people, I know it can be hard. It can be long days. Sometimes we're out there 12, 14 hours in the 100-degree heat on an asphalt parking lot. But we're out there to make a living. And sometimes you've got to put on your happy face and make it happen.
That's very true.
Yeah. 100%.
So are there any other trends that you're seeing that are kind of interesting or surprising that have come up recently in markets like yours that are a little bit more local, a little bit more vintage, handmade, unique, I guess is really the word I'm looking for. What's surprising lately, or anything that's coming up that's fun?
What we noticed is over COVID, everyone had the opportunity to become an artist or maker at home. We had a lot of free time. We had a little bit of disposable income thanks to the government. And a lot of people got into hobbies that they wanted to try to turn into a business. We saw a lot of jewelry makers come on in the past couple of years, and some have lasted, and some have realized that it wasn't worth pursuing full time. Polymer clay jewelry was a huge one. We saw an influx of sometimes dozens of people making similar, everyone had their own style, but having a similar medium, and it has started to not weed out, but reduce. It comes in waves. A few years ago, same with macrame plant hangers, things that were accessible. Not everyone wants to get into making silver jewelry and buying this expensive stuff, but if you could buy the materials needed on Amazon or at Michael's, test the waters in a business that has low overhead, and give you an outlet to be creative, then people were jumping in on that.
I think too, off of that, same thing with people were stuck at home or even maybe not working. So you did see a huge influx going back to the vintage clothing. You saw a huge influx of people doing just that and going out. I think, and going out to the thrift stores and finding these items of clothing and thinking that, oh, well, I can just go and get this and then turn around and sell it. And I think you're seeing those people now, some of those starting to get weeded out as well, of who's really getting into it, who's really kind of knowing their stuff, much like we were saying earlier, getting into when it was made, being able to put a date on it or a year on it. And so it's the same thing with some of those, the creators is the same thing with the curators. You've got people coming out and you'll starting to see some of those that took it seriously, and some of those that I mean, let's be honest, what we do and what they do, and just like what Michael was saying, is like, we understand that you're out there for 12 or something hours, but it's not an easy career. It's not an easy job. And you are literally, and the reason we say tiny business is one of the reasons we say it is because you're a tiny business that's trying to grow into a small business. You're trying to make something, which means you have to work even harder, which means you are not just doing 40 hours a week. You're doing 80 hours a week. And you are truly in that middle of that grind. And some people can handle it and some people can't. And be quite honest with you, some days I can handle it, and some days I can't either. So it's not to say that, because you can't handle it, you shouldn't do it. But it's a tough industry. It's a tough business. It's a tough thing to start. Not as much to start, but it's a tough thing to continue and to truly make something into it.
I think.
Go ahead.
Another thing, when you were asking about trends, something that I don't know that people notice it as much as we do, but it is a more female-dominated field, which we are extremely supportive of. I would say at least 60% or more of our vendors are women, and you see that more especially in the crafting category. But across the board, we don't have as many male vendors that are doing things like the male vendors that come to mind are making things like hot sauce or pickles, doing woodworking, leatherworking. Yeah. But there's so many women-focused vendors that are making health and beauty products. They're making jewelry. They're making candles. So for us trying to find something, we see a good mix. I'd say 50-50 on the customer base, but trying to find that those vendors to go after the men. We also, even our followers on social media, we're at 70% of our followers are women, because women they enjoy our events and they see that we are booking things that they want to come out and shop with.
If you're struggling to reach new audiences and showcase your work, get ready for Eventini to blow your mind. You'll have your hard work seen, find tons of event opportunities, and effortlessly sell your products online with fewer fees. When you create a business profile on Eventini, you get access to event applications from over 10,000 events, an easy-to-create business profile that makes you stand out on every application, even boost your sales with online product listings directly linked to the events you are participating in. So go to Eventini.com now to elevate your business, expand your reach, and start selling more.
So okay, so first of all, how many events do you guys have per year?
We did right at 40 last year.
Oh my goodness.
On a rough count, on my rough count last week was we're going to be over 50 this year.
We're going to be in 10 months. That's March through December. We do not operate in January, February.
Wow. Well, good for
Just
you
find-
for
we
taking a
find
break,
that-
though.
Yeah, well, we don't take a break, but yeah,
Kind
I mean
of?
that's
I don't know.
there's the hoping.
Yeah.
That is
we
the
call it off season,
yeah,
but
that's the idea. That's when we take meetings. But we just found that January and February were harder months to have events and to sell. We needed more time to do some of the behind the scenes stuff, kind of get these properties ready, to get stuff in place for the upcoming year. I think that's what a lot of people don't know, how much goes on behind the scenes when it comes to some of these events.
Yeah.
And that's, again, that's where we felt like we thrived and we excelled at, was the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And again, they're curated vintage and handmade pop-up markets. So that also means you have to curate those spaces, and not just every single place is the right fit for a market.
it's easy to I hope that people come into our events and see what would normally be an asphalt parking lot and see it happen and never think about how it happened.
Yeah.
When we take these meetings with, you meet with developers or property management that they own millions or billions of dollars in properties across the country and the world, and we tell them, hey, we're going to bring in a vintage and handmade market, and most of them don't understand. The thing that makes our skin crawl is if someone calls it a flea market or a yard sale. We are a curated vintage and handmade event, and I understand that may not, click in their suits and tie heads, but we take this time to meet with them and show them proof over the past year, like, hey, these are the numbers that we produced. These are how many people came to your property that wouldn't have been there otherwise. These are the people you're supporting. This is the community. These are the small businesses that make this city great, and we want to keep some of that character here.
It makes a lot of sense,
So,
and I think
it
showing
does.
numbers, whether you're an event or if you're selling, either way, really moves the needle with people too. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jen.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say it's really smart to be able to leverage that to the actual property owners too, because sometimes I think that's missed, that they don't understand that this is actually benefiting them more than they think it is, more than just whatever you're paying for the space, but you're actually bringing awareness to where they are. And I think that's very, very important. That
I
needs
think
to be highlighted.
with Atlanta specifically, Atlanta's growing really
Mhm.
quickly. And I think that we have found some of those properties that are newer, and that, like we were saying at the beginning, that need some of that foot traffic, that need, their resident businesses could be small businesses as well. And you have to have something to bring in people, and not just the restaurants or the shops. I mean, those are great, but to bring in something, you're bringing in so many different businesses to then promote the small businesses that now call your development, in their words, their development. You're bringing an influx of people and an influx of customers that hopefully will come back multiple times and revisit that small business. Especially, I know for us, like for restaurants, we always go around and talk to the restaurants that surround where we're going to be. We want them to know who we are. We want them to have a face to a name. And again, as much as they're not in our event, they're very much a part of the event. And we want them to know that we're there to support them as well. And just like you're saying, the property owners, they've got to realize, like, y'all are benefiting from this, is just as much as everyone is benefiting from it.
Right.
We don't most of our events we don't serve alcohol on site. We don't usually book food trucks because we want to support that neighborhood where we're at. We want you to go grab a drink across the street, go have a piece of pizza, go sit down for dinner. Think about those pieces that you saw when you walked around. Come shop again on your way out. It gives you that buffer of like, man, that was so much fun, but I didn't get that one thing. It's haunting me. Let's stop back by.
That makes total sense. The event in my neighborhood wasn't made by somebody else. It was the coffee shop owner who was there, wanted to bring more people around, and he found that he loved events. So he started doing this monthly event. And I think he's moved on from coffee just to do events now because it just meant a lot to the community. And to him, it was about the community. It's about the neighborhood and everything. And I think that's a great point to share in that, because it doesn't just affect the people who come to those vendors on that day. It affects every business in the neighborhood who's always there, and brings people from other parts of town that maybe didn't know that there was a cool Mexican place there and that they should try that out. So
absolutely, we've literally seen that happen in some of these neighborhoods of, oh, I didn't realize this had been developed like this. And that's a success story right there. That's fantastic, because that's helping them, and you're coming out to support the small businesses, you're supporting the tiny businesses, you're supporting the event itself, you're supporting your neighborhood, your local community. I mean, it speaks volumes.
And as an artist or a vendor, you also are right next to those businesses. You could just go in before or after the event and say, hey, I sell this. If it's art, would you be interested in having this on your walls? If it's a product, the bar that I go to sells products also. They sell coffee and things like that. Make those connections.
Yeah, right. And also connecting those artists with these local businesses to do future design work. Do you want a mural painted on your wall? Do you need a sticker design? Anything like that. It could be the thing that breaks the ice for that conversation.
Yeah.
So whenever, I know that there are some people that may be a little, for lack of better terms, like intimidated by a vintage market. So for somebody that's wanting to apply to be a part of your event, what are some things that they need to be aware of that may be different than a typical event that they would be a part of?
I would say if anyone ever has any questions to reach out directly, and we know that fortunately we have had some success over the past few years, and some of our markets may not be at a price point that's accessible for a vendor that's starting out. We try to have a variety of events in size and price point so that we can support those vendors that are just starting or testing the waters with a new idea. But as they grow and see that, hey, this is viable, this is profitable, we have those larger events with larger attendance and larger sales records showing that, hey, this market is $95 for the day, but it's proven that people are making that back. It's worth it. Where we may have a smaller market that's only 8 or 10 vendors on a Wednesday night that's $50. And that's a good way to start out and say, my items, I sell stickers and my items are $3 or $4 a piece. It's hard for me to make that $100 vendor fee, but I can afford a $50.
Yeah. So all of your events in Georgia?
Yes, right now all in inside the perimeter, inside the city of Atlanta.
Okay.
People have asked plenty of times if we have plans on going or taking it on the road or anything. Right now, no. We're from Atlanta. We have built a following here that has been very loyal to us. Not for now, not never, but we're riding a good wave here. So we're gonna keep going.
As we've said before, like it's just organically grown. Of course, we have goals, but I think, like Mike said, we've done well so far here. If an opportunity shows itself, we're always down for a conversation. We're always down for a conversation, a phone call, an in-person meeting, something like that to explore what the future could hold. But yeah, I think we're just saying, really, we're always down to have a conversation on anything. But right now, yes, we are inside of it. Like,
we did a couple things last year that were out of our norm. So Atlanta has a huge Halloween festival and parade, and we were contracted by the organization that puts it on to run the entire market section. 120 vendors, 10 food trucks. It was 2 days long. The attendance was 75,000 people over 2 days. And we managed the entire market section with CC, myself, and 3 other guys put on the entire market section. We did another festival similar to that with about 30,000 people. And we also put on a mini vintage and handmade market inside of a music festival. It's called Reset Concert Series. Bands like LCD Sound System, Idols, Boy Genius, Toro y Moi. It was some big names, but we brought 10 vendors into a 20 by 40 tent to sell things like shirts and jewelry, art, and got in front of a whole new crowd. And once we had that, this was a touring show that was hitting 15 cities across America. We were like, this was such a success. And we heard it from, the promoters of the event. They were like, this is exactly what this thing needed. Maybe we're going to try it in other cities too.
Wow.
And even to go off of the Little 5 Points Halloween parade for us being from, I grew up on the north side of Atlanta, and Michael grew up on the south side. But, for us to get that and to manage that was a big deal. I mean, we've been fans. I mean, we've been attendees of that festival for a long time. And, even when I would tell friends that, we're managing the vendor portion of the Little 5 Points Halloween parade, I think a lot of people that have known from where we started immediately, their eyes got big and was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And that was a great opportunity. I think that was definitely a milestone for our company and for us. And we knew we could take on the challenge. We knew that we were ready for it. We knew there would be long days, but we did it. And I mean, I'm biased, but I mean, we crushed it too. We did really good at it, especially with us and just 3 other people. But, that just kind of gives you an idea of that like organically grown thing. I don't know if 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have asked, or even 6 years ago, said like, y'all would be doing that. I don't know if I think we might have laughed. No. You know what I mean? And like, what are you talking about? Like that wasn't
in our realm of possibility. Yeah. If you asked 2 years ago if I would have quit my job and started doing this full time, I would have been violently against it. I would have said, absolutely not. I don't want to rely on something like this. I love doing it, but I don't want to lose the luster. But we grew organically and saw the opportunity and took it, and it's only growing.
And I think too, we've mentioned that it is a lot of there's a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into it, but I can safely say that we will work ourselves to complete exhaustion to get some of these events going. And our wives don't always like hearing that, but it is true that we will just work and work and work. But when you get done, and we get done with an event, and you have vendors coming up and saying, Mike and Cece, I did my best numbers I've ever done. I did my top sales for this year. I did my top sales ever. I did my top, like that right there just makes I'm literally getting chills just saying it right now. Like that right there makes everything. And we talk about it. Well, I'll send them a message, be like, that conversation right there just made every bit of what we just did for the last 3, 6 months, 8 months. It depends on the scale of the project and the event on how long we work on it, but it makes it worth it. And it really does. Again, our wives won't maybe always agree with that, but they also know, and they've seen us grow this. And so they understand what it means to us. And I used to say, I don't say it much anymore, but it's a labor of love and we love the labor. We still do love the labor, and it absolutely is a labor of love. But
well, now we've got a good crew of people that help support us.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of the same vendors that have been with us since, nearly day one. People are professionals. They know what to expect from us, and we know what to expect from them. It has become, I won't say it has become easy, but it has become much easier than it used to be.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. It sounds like you guys have a lot of passion for what you're doing and you're very busy. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything to get the word out, to continue pushing what these vendors do. I will say that, to continue pushing what they are doing, to continue pushing local and supporting local and shopping small, and any of those terms that you want to use, to continue pushing that. That's, I feel like, what we are truly passionate about, and
taking a chance on yourself.
Yeah.
Finding something that you're interested in and passionate about, testing the waters in some of these events, and then realizing, hey, I've been in a career that maybe isn't where I want to spend my life. This can give you that opportunity to find something that truly makes you happy.
Well, I
That's
hope that all of
incredible.
our artists and vendors can find event organizers to work with that are like you
Yep.
both, and that care, that want to have that relationship, not just make money, but have a relationship that builds for each of you something personal and for your community. So it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where can people find you guys?
So we have a website. Our website is gvgatl.com. We are also on social media as GVG ATL. We are active on Facebook. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are our main platforms that we're doing. We are also on YouTube as well. I do need to start saying that some more. We are on YouTube as well. You can kind of see some recaps and some shorts of past events that we've done on all of our social media platforms.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you. Well, we'd
Yeah.
love to have you back sometime down the road. Are you open to that?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay, cool. Yay.
Sweet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks again. It was
Yep.
nice to meet you both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
too. Thanks for
Great to
having us.
meet y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate
Yeah.
you too. Have a good one.
So, what'd you think? Good?
I love that. They brought up some stuff that's just so cool. I am 100% going to steal the term micro business because I think it is a small business, but when it's like just you or you and one other person
Yeah.
doing your business, small business still feels too big, and micro business is so perfect. I love that phrase.
Yeah, that's a really cute. I like it too. It's because small businesses, you can still be making millions and millions of dollars, but micro business, I think, is true to form for like mom and pop business and makers like us. So yeah, I agree with you. That's a really great term. I really also enjoyed their point of view as far as like the community and working with the community and really honing in on that and the experience that the artist vendors and exhibitors have at their events, and making sure that they also have a quality experience and they get all their needs met, and it's not just about the attendees or about the event runners. It's all also they understand the value in the artists. So I really appreciated that point of view from them.
That was super cool. Also, I had no idea there were people out there like trading stuff. How
Yeah.
cool is
Oh
that? Like, I
yeah,
was
that's
like,
kind of
really?
crazy, huh?
Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. We talk about this stuff all the time, and there's still things out there and trends that are happening that
Yeah.
who knew you could just, I mean, I guess you can do anything you want, but people are just bartering, and I just love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool throwback, I think, to like Craigslist days.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
beginning
yeah.
of Christmas days. So, well, at least to me, but yeah, I like that too. It's fun.
I thought that was neat. The other thing I really liked, and I think this is important because we all like, especially when you're a micro business is your baby,
Hmm.
rejection's tough. And I loved what they talked about, that like sometimes you don't get into an event and it's for the best. Like
Right.
it's not a good fit. It's not that your business isn't great. It is. It's just like not the right spot. So in a way, they're kind of protecting you and saying, okay, yeah, you could spend $150 here and not make your money back, and we are going to keep that from happening. And it's just important, I think, for people to don't take that rejection as actual rejection. It's more like, okay, this isn't quite the right spot. Keep looking.
Yeah,
Don't give.
exactly. Yeah. And they're that with GVG, they're on a really quick growth trajectory. And I think that understanding that too, that while they're growing, that you may have that spot with them later. And just because you don't now doesn't mean that you're not right for the whole thing. You're just not right now. So yeah, I like that takeaway as well.
That's very
Yeah,
cool.
so perfect. So yay. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today and listening and or watching our interview with GVG. We hope you were able to take some tips and tricks away from it. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
And
Next
the next one.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the next one. All right, we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.
Very cool. Thanks, everybody.